What you are about to hear could completely transform the way you perceive the world and the impact you have on it. Perhaps you've noticed that no matter what you do, people seem to react in ways you can't always explain. Some observe you with quiet admiration, others with suspicion, and a few with hostility disguised as indifference. You don't need to exert much effort for your presence to be felt. It's not arrogance, nor is it overbearing. It's something deeper, something that cannot be hidden or diminished. And it is precisely this quality that unsettles others. There are those who enter a room and go unnoticed, gentle waves blending seamlessly with the ocean without disturbing its surface. And then there's you, a silent earthquake, a storm contained within an apparent calm. When you arrive, something shifts. It's not something you control, nor something you ask for, but it is inevitable. Your energy is a gravitational field, pushing and pulling simultaneously. Not everyone can handle it. Not everyone is ready for it. You've felt this tension before, that awkward moment when conversations change as you approach. It's not that you're aggressive or provocative, but there is something about you that makes others adjust in their seats, as if your mere presence triggers an internal alarm. And if you pay close attention, you'll see it's not fear of you, but fear of what you represent, of what you project without uttering a single word. In a world where most people prefer to hide behind carefully constructed masks, you are a reminder of what it means to be authentic, and that unsettles them. People don't fear darkness or light. They fear what forces them to confront what they'd rather avoid. And within you, there is a clarity that brings uncomfortable truths to the surface. You don't need to say anything, nor point anything out. Your mere existence disrupts the comfort others have chosen to live in. While many spend their lives trying to fit in, you walk with a certainty that confounds them. You've learned to move without asking permission, to exist without the need for justification. And that simple fact is enough to make many uneasy. Perhaps you've noticed it in their glances, in the way some observe you with a mix of curiosity and fear, as if trying to decipher something they cannot quite understand. Maybe you've seen in the way others attempt to minimize you, masking their discomfort with sarcasm or seemingly harmless comments. It's not a coincidence. It's not your imagination. There is something about you that does not go unnoticed, something that challenges and shifts the dynamic of any space you enter. Even when you can't always see it clearly, you feel it. Energy doesn't lie. There's a weight in the atmosphere when you speak, an echo in the minds of those around you long after you've gone. Some will mistake it for arrogance. Others will call it intensity. But the truth is, what they feel is the power of someone who refuses to bend, someone who cannot be lost in the crowd. And in a world where most choose the comfort of mediocrity, that is an act of rebellion. Here lies the paradox. While your presence may inspire admiration, it will also provoke resistance. The world isn't designed for those who refuse to be molded. Society favors those who follow the rhythm, not those who challenge it. And when you move with unshakable certainty, some will perceive it as a threat. Not because you've harmed them, but because your very existence exposes what they've tried to conceal. Have you ever wondered why certain people react negatively toward you without apparent reason? Why some seem uncomfortable when you speak with confidence? Why there are those who try to bring you down even when you've done them no harm? The answer is simple. There is something in you that confronts them without you saying a word, not through conflict, but through your very being. You are a mirror in which they see their reflection, and not everyone is ready for what they see. Some will try to minimize you, searching for any flaw to justify their discomfort. They'll attempt to make you doubt yourself, to plant small cracks in your confidence. Not because they truly believe what they say, but because they need to feel that they can level the playing field. If they can make you question yourself, if they can make you feel that maybe you aren't as strong as you believe, they'll find solace in their own mediocrity. But here's a truth you must remember. Light does not need permission to shine. It does not have to apologize for its intensity. And neither do you. Don't apologize for the discomfort your presence creates in others. Don't shrink yourself to make others more comfortable in their own shadows. Because those who are truly ready to grow will not flee from the light. They will seek it. And in you, they will find a strength they may not even know they possess. The challenge isn't for others to accept you. It isn't for the world to accommodate your energy. The real challenge is for you to accept yourself, without doubt, without apology, without diminishing your essence. The more you resist who you are, The harder your path becomes, the more you try to fit into a mold not made for you, the further you drift from your true self. You felt the discomfort of not fitting in. You felt the pressure from those who wish you were more manageable, more predictable, easier to accept. But that is not your nature. You're not here to be a diluted version of yourself. You're not here to walk with your head down just because others can't withstand the force with which you view the world. And so, the most important question arises, will you keep trying to fit into a world not made for you? Will you keep dimming your presence to avoid unsettling others? Or will you finally accept that the reason you provoke such intense reactions in others is because your energy is impossible to ignore? The power you hold cannot be faked. It cannot be fabricated. It's the result of a path you've walked, of wounds you've healed, of battles you've fought in silence. And while some may perceive it as a threat, others will see it as a beacon, because those searching for their own strength will recognize yours. So the real question is this: will you let the fear and envy of others define who you are? Or will you walk with the certainty that, even if some can't handle it, your presence is a reminder of what it means to be authentic? Because when you accept yourself without fear, without apology, without doubt, the world loses its power over you. And that is when you truly discover what it means to be free. For them, your way of being is a threat because it shows that there's another way to live, one that requires no permission, one that does not bow down, one that never negotiates its essence for a shred of acceptance. But the real question is, what will you do with this? Will you adapt to make others feel more comfortable? Will you dim your light so as not to stand out? Or will you continue walking with the same conviction with which you began this journey? Because here's the truth. No matter how much you try to soften your presence, no matter how much you strive to make others comfortable, you will never fit into a world that was not designed for those who are free. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to convince anyone that your path is valid. The only person you must answer to is yourself. And when you understand that, when you stop seeking validation from those who will never comprehend what it means to live unshackled, you realize that true freedom is not found in how others perceive you, but in how you perceive yourself. When you reach that point, the fear and envy of others lose their grip on you because you found something no one can take away. The certainty that, regardless of who approves or disapproves of your existence, you remain exactly who you are meant to be. There's weight in your words when you choose to speak. Not because you seek to impose yourself, but because everything you say carries a strength that leaves no room for superficial. You are not one to sugarcoat the truth to make it easier to swallow, nor do you embellish your words to make them more palatable. The truth is the truth, and though many claim to want it, the reality is that very few are prepared to hear it. Perhaps you've noticed it in the averted glances, in the uncomfortable silences that follow when you say something no one else dares to voice. It's not that you seek to make people uncomfortable, but the truth has that effect. It's like a light turned on in a dark room. Some receive it with relief because they've been longing for that clarity, but others resent it because they weren't ready to see what they've been avoiding. And that's where the intimidation begins. The world is filled with empty words, with speeches crafted to please, with phrases spoken just to fit in. Most people prefer to hear what makes them feel good, what confirms their beliefs, what allows them to remain as they are without questioning too much. But you are different. You don't say what people expect to hear. You say what is, and that changes everything. The truth carries a weight that some cannot bear. Not because it's harmful, but because it exposes what they've been trying to hide, not only from others, but from themselves. The most dangerous lies are not those spoken aloud, but the ones repeated internally until they become part of one's identity. And when someone like you appears, someone who refuses to be swept away by the convenience of falsehood, it's as if their entire house of cards is at risk of collapse. They've told you that you're too direct, that you could soften your words, that maybe you should consider others' feelings before speaking your mind. But what they really want is not for you to be more considerate. They want you to conform to their world of half-truths, to join the dance where everyone pretends not to see the obvious. And if you refuse, if you dare to speak without filters, you become a threat. But here lies the paradox. Those who feel most attacked by your words are often the ones who most need to hear them, because deep down, they know you're not lying. They know that what you're saying is true, but admitting it would mean confronting everything they've been avoiding. And not everyone is ready to do that. Some react with anger, searching for any excuse to discredit you, to paint you as cruel or insensitive. Not because they truly believe you're unfair, but because they need a reason not to listen. Because if they accepted that you're right, if they acknowledge the truth in your words, they would have to change. And change is terrifying for those who have built their world on denial. Others simply walk away, not because they don't care about what you say, but because they care too much. Because what you said keeps echoing in their minds, resonating in the deepest corners of their consciousness. And though their initial reaction may be rejection, though they try to convince themselves it doesn't matter, the truth has a peculiar way of lingering in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to be acknowledged. Maybe you've experienced it. Maybe someone you told an uncomfortable truth distanced themselves from you, only to return later, not to openly admit you were right, but with a different attitude, with the look of someone who has understood something they couldn't accept before. Because truth, when spoken with firmness but without cruelty, has the power to transform, even if it's rejected at first, even if it seems impossible to digest. The question remains, will you keep speaking with the same clarity, even if it means making others uncomfortable? Will you stand by the truth, even if it causes some to walk away? Or will you soften, dilute your voice, just to make the world a little more comfortable? Because here lies the choice before you. You can fit into the mold of what is acceptable. You can be diplomatic. You can learn to say what people want to hear. But if you do, you will have betrayed what makes you different. The truth is not always welcomed, not always celebrated, not always appreciated. But it is necessary. And in a world where most prefer to live in the shadow of convenience, those who have the courage to say what others fear are the ones who truly leave a mark. Not everyone will handle your honesty. Not everyone will embrace what you say without feeling attacked. But those who are ready to grow, those who truly seek to evolve, will recognize you, not because you tell them what they want to hear, but because you give them what they need. And in that moment, everything makes sense. Because in the end, it's not about how many walk away. It's about how many wake up. Those who cannot be manipulated become an unsettling presence for individuals who have built their existence on the ability to influence others. Not because they seek conflict, but because they expose, without saying a single word, the mere presence of someone who refuses to play the game. That alone is enough to disrupt the dynamic. Enough to reveal what once went unnoticed. Some people don't know how to handle this. They try to categorize what they don't understand, assigning labels that make them feel at ease. Too distant, too serious, too rigid. But these labels aren't genuine descriptions. They're attempts to reduce something they cannot comprehend, a way to regain the sense of control they lost when confronted with someone who doesn't follow the expected script. The world isn't designed for those who have learned to see through illusion. But that doesn't mean they should hide. On the contrary, it means they have a responsibility to stand firm, to remain unyielding, to serve as a reminder that true freedom is non-negotiable. Because if there are no individuals who remain unshakable, the world becomes a place where everything can be molded and controlled. The choice is always there. Take the easier path, the one where you yield just enough to avoid friction, or walk with conviction that no price is high enough to justify losing what truly matters, the ability to be yourself without compromise. And the question that lingers is simple. Which path will you choose? The answer often reveals itself before words are even spoken, not in what people say, but in what they try to conceal. You see it in the flicker of their gaze, the stiffness of their posture, the slight delay in their smile when you arrive. Not everyone feels the same way, but an invisible weight always hangs in the air, a reflection you can't help but project onto others. You become a living reminder of what they could be, but haven't yet found the courage to become, and that reflection isn't always welcomed. Some observe you with quiet admiration, wondering how you sustain such strength without breaking, how you walk with a confidence that seeks neither permission nor validation. Others, however, feel a vague resentment they can't fully explain, not because you've wronged them, but because they see their own fears and excuses mirrored in you, in your presence. They confront everything they postponed, hoping it would simply disappear. But there you are, existing unapologetically, proving with every step that what they deemed impossible was merely a choice. Human nature is full of contradictions. People can admire what they secretly envy, despise what they secretly desire, wish the best for someone, and yet feel a suffocating unease when they see them achieve it. Not everyone knows how to manage these emotions. Not everyone has the humility to admit that what bothers them about you is merely a reflection of their own limitations. Some will find inspiration in your path. Others will prefer to attack you in silence, masking their discomfort with indifference, distance, or subtle words meant to plant doubt within you. But that's not your burden to bear. You cannot take responsibility for how others react to your existence. You cannot shrink yourself so their reflection becomes more comfortable. You cannot pretend to be less than you are just because some people don't know how to handle the image they see in you. You've worked to get here. You walk through shadows others haven't even dared to face. You've broken chains they didn't even realize they were carrying. And now, simply by existing, you stir in them an internal storm they weren't prepared to confront. It's easy to see how some react. They minimize you, search for flaws, make seemingly harmless comments laced with subtle venom. Others distance themselves without explanation, avoid eye contact, or quietly withdraw from your life. And if you stop to wonder what you did wrong, the answer will be simple. Nothing. You did nothing but exist. But for some, that's already too much. You cannot change what you project onto others. You cannot soften the intensity of your life for those who have grown accustomed to the shadows. You might try to ignore it, pretend not to notice the weight of the discomfort, but deep down you feel the thick air in certain encounters, perceive the tension in their words, the rigidity in their bodies when you're near. You've learned to read these signals effortlessly, to distinguish between those who see you as an inspiration and those who perceive you as a silent threat. And here lies the paradox. Many of those who resist your presence the most are the ones who need it the most. Deep down, they know their discomfort doesn't stem from you, but from what your existence reveals about themselves. And though they may distance themselves, though they may try to discredit what you represent, there's a part of them that can't stop looking. They can't help but feel drawn to the strength they claim to reject, because within them still exists the possibility of awakening. Not everyone is ready. Some may spend their entire lives avoiding that confrontation, seeking refuge where they never have to face themselves with honesty. But others, sooner or later, will understand. And when they do, they'll remember the reflection you cast, the feeling of having felt small next to you, not because you diminished them, but because they never learned to expand. And in that moment, if they choose growth, your reflection will no longer be a threat, but a guide. But that's not your purpose. You're not here to change anyone. You're not here to convince others to see what they're not ready to face. You're here to keep growing, to keep challenging your own limits, to keep expanding without fear how others might react. You cannot wait for the world to catch up. You cannot shrink yourself so their journey feels easier. Life keeps moving, and those who are ready will walk beside you. Those who aren't will stay behind, trapped by their own barriers. It's not your job to tear those walls down. It's not your task to carry the weight of their resistance. All you can do is keep moving forward, without fear, without apology, without looking back. And on that path, those truly prepared will recognize in you the sign they've been waiting for. Because true growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in discomfort, in the confrontation with what was once avoided, in the decision to stop hiding behind excuses, and finally accept that the only real barrier has always been within. So the question remains, will you keep walking with the same certainty, undeterred by the envy or fear of others? Or will you allow their reactions to shape your path? Because the answer to that question defines more than you realize. It defines whether you're truly free or still allowing the world to shape the limits of who you can be.